What's up, everybody? I'm Brian. That's Steve. This is the Suffering Swords Podcast, Ep.6. It's February 20th. This is the pre-trade deadline edition. Probably doesn't mean much with this team, seeing as how they've operated previously.
My expectations are super low. I want to get excited, and I still am, but I'm keeping them tempered this time around. Even though the hauls that have been being brought in by other teams in our position, they've been pretty high. So maybe there's potential that we get something decent for guys that we didn't expect to. I mean, there's still the possibility that guys like Ristolainen and Montour are traded. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I usually have pretty, not lofty expectations, but I at least expect things to happen. And not, aside from, the normal just dumping, no-name UFAs off or, AHL trades and stuff like that, I usually expect more than that. I usually, at least in my head, thinking that there's going to be, a splash move that we usually see a couple of each year. Hopefully it'll be the Sabres this year, and I'm always disappointed. I have very tempered expectations. I don't expect Jason Botterill to do anything, really. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see Sherry get dumped. Rodriguez maybe, Gergensons maybe, Larsson if they're dumb, so probably Larsson. Montour and Risto, that would be, I think, the splashy move that I would hope for. I would hope Risto more so than Montour, obviously, but who knows what we're going to get with him or for him. I mean, it's been looked at for so long, and nothing has ever come of it. Did you see Brian Burke talking about the trade possibility with Ristolainen?
No.
One of the GMs said that, I think it was him, actually, that said they were going to trade for Ristolainen, or they were interested in it, and his analytics department was like, he's complete dog shit. Do not trade for Ristolainen. So that just fell off the table for that team. So that's where we're at. I said it then and I'll say it now. I really wish that they went after Ehlers in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, that was a 1-for-1 trade that a lot of people talked about. I mean, we would have had to maybe take Matthew Perreault with it as well, which probably wouldn't have been terrible. I know he's not having a great season this year, at least when I checked before, and I know he's over $4 million in cap. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that move, instead of taking in VC or something, I feel like that could have been a lot better. Obviously, in hindsight, Ristolainen has been better this season, but still is not really someone that we need to hang on to, and Ehlers would have probably helped tremendously. I mean, that's another top 6 guy, and he's having, both guys that were in those trade talks were having off seasons last year. Ehlers really turned it around. He's having a great season, and now Winnipeg says that he's doing too good for them to even trade. So,
and this isn't just a bumfuck rumor. This is legit. Yeah. That was a real possibility in the offseason. That's been confirmed that was on the table and a serious trade talk. And, hindsight's 20/20, but damn, that's a bad look if you're the Sabres right now. I mean, looking back on it, even then, if I would have told my future self then that, you're probably going to regret this, I would say, yeah, probably, and here we are, and I regret not doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's always fun looking back at what could have been and knowing that it probably was never going to happen just based off of this team and the direction that they've gone. And it's sad. So what was the score of the Ottawa game?
7-4.
7-4.
With an empty netter, but
yeah,
still.
Still 7 goals to the Ottawa Senators.
I said before we watched the game, and I said before that 7-6 is what I'm looking for.
A barn burner.
I was pretty close. I feel like I was closer than most people would have predicted.
Well, you gave both teams a lot more credit than they deserve, and one of them actually came through.
Yeah.
Just too bad it wasn't the team that we need it to be.
I mean, we don't really need it to be them at this point.
Yeah,
so, I mean, as long as the games are, I've said this before, as long as there's exciting, it's another eye-opening game. Really, going on a winning streak right now, or the last few games leading up to the trade deadline would be bad because, any false hope that, we could possibly give to Jason Botterill or whoever to maybe not sell some of our assets that we should. We don't want that. It's the sad reality here, but if you're looking at it in the right way in the long term, and if you don't believe in, saying, oh, well, maybe if we had a few more wins here and there, we could be a playoff team. Well, we still would probably get eliminated first round. So, the reality is losing is probably the best case scenario. Getting another good pick, trying to build up the farm, but also while trading off some of the dead assets, improving what we have, and maybe trading Risto Montour for some top 6 forward help that could really help out our team in the long run.
Well, do you see Ristolainen's value as a top 6 forward? Because I certainly don't.
I don't know. I hope so. I hope there's teams that, obviously analytics are really important, and
not all teams use them, though.
Not all teams use them. Plus the fact that, you also can just look at his game, and I could tell Risto would be really pretty good in the playoffs for roughing up dudes. He brings that physical presence that you probably want to wear teams down, right?
Yeah, big boy hockey playoff time. He definitely would deliver on that. It would just be the question mark is with him. It's always just defensively, and he just makes poor decisions, and that hasn't stopped. It seems to have kind of rectified itself this year.
A little bit.
But when you look at advanced stats, he's still terrible.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, the analytics versus eye test thing is confusing to me with him, because we talked about it a couple episodes ago where we thought he was having a good year.
Yeah.
And then people started taking a look at him again because it was the second half of the year, and people were like, well, let's see what Risto did.
Yeah.
He was dog shit again, and nothing has changed. He started off well, I think, and then has just plummeted. And that's just, I guess, what we should expect from him, because it's his third coach. It's his third different system. I think his big thing in years prior was probably shouldering too much of the load and playing with lesser talent with him in the D-corps. This is the most talented group of defensemen we've had playing with him since he got here. And I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would assume that this is the lowest amount of minutes he's played in several years.
Yeah.
Because, playing with 7 defensemen helps D minutes. And I just hope that whatever happens with him, he doesn't somehow turn it around with his next team, because there's so much that swirls around him, and the controversy between, people think he's good, people think he's terrible. Pick a side and that's where your foot lands. And it's you got to dig in, or else you're going to get run over by the other people. So I'm taking this stance right now. I think we'd be better off without him.
Yeah. And I know Darren Dreger, he's defends Botterill every moment.
He's pumping the tires so much.
But I think today I even saw a tweet saying that, I believe it's from Darren Dreger, saying that Botterill doesn't want to, make a mistake that he regrets in a few years. So right. But you kind of have to swing for the fences if you're him at this point.
Well, yeah, you have to assume that if you have a player that has been here for so long and has been part of so much losing, and there's so much around him that says he's not good, even if it's not coming from you directly, you have to have people around you saying, he's a problem. He's not solved. He's not good. He might look okay, but, his underlying stats are, a nightmare. They always have been. If I'm Jason Botterill and I look at that, I would say for sure, like, even if it doesn't turn out well for us, that's something I can point a finger at the fans for and say, you wanted this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm sure no GM would ever come out and directly...
Like, hey.
Yeah, be like, all right, shut your
this
fucking...
This is not my fault.
Shut your fucking mouths. You wanted this too. No one does that. But, like, this would be something that even the fan base would keep themselves in check, where a ton of people would, like, applaud the move. And if it didn't work out, people would be like, well, we can't really say anything about it. At least he tried.
But the difference here is, I mean, obviously it's referencing the Ryan O'Reilly trade. Mm-hmm. There was no underlying stats saying O'Reilly was bad. His advanced stats are great. His legitimate, normal stats, like goals and assists, whatever, those are good numbers. Face-offs, obviously, that was one of the things I think he won the most face-offs in the league his last season with us. So, like, all those stats were there. Nothing, like, showed that, he was actually possibly a problem. Mm-hmm. Ristolainen, his stats are actually pretty good goals or assist-wise. Like, he still looks like he's on pace for, like, 40 points or whatever, which is a normal thing. And that's, D-men, that's solid, right? So if the GM's out there looking for that, they have it. And the physical presence, they have it. So hopefully, you get an old head that doesn't care about advanced stats and will, do a trade like that. Especially if they're desperate for D-men, and there's been a lot of injuries lately, so it could happen.
Well, a lot of the holes that have come up have already been filled by GMs that seem to do a much better job than Jason Botchell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, that's kind of the direction that I was heading, where he, you said that, was it Dreger? Said he was gun-shy?
I believe
more
so.
or less in different words, said he was gun-shy because he doesn't want to get burned again. Yeah, like you said, you look at this and you look at O'Reilly. They're two totally different cases.
Yeah.
They're two, aside from being different positions, they couldn't be more different players. O'Reilly was always the more skill and knew where to be. He was a smart player.
Yeah.
And Ristolainen is the opposite, just raw power and, flashes of skill, but he just overbears people. And those are two completely different player types. And if you look at Ristolainen's game and O'Reilly's game, you're more likely going to see like a huge decline in Ristolainen first, because once he loses that physical ability, he has nothing.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't think the game well enough. And that's been proven. And O'Reilly is one of the smartest players in the league. I mean, he's amazing defensively. He knows where to be on offense. He's not the fastest guy, but he gets in positions to score. He's a good setup guy. And if you just compare the two of them and their body of work, if you're the GM, you need to understand that, like, this has it's much less likely that this would come back to hurt you.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Right.
And, obviously you're getting rid of someone that's playing 20 plus minutes a night for you and has been on the team for so long. But you have proof that he's, hurting your team offensively and defensively when he's out there. When we were watching the Senators game, there was a few occasions that he was just missing on his, side of the net, and good chances happened because of it.
It's weird. The stereotypical Ristolainen game is he makes an amazing play, whether that's a huge hit or like a nice breakup, or like the last couple games he's had two like gorgeous passes. Mm-hmm. One set up a goal. The other, I think, just led to a nice shot.
Yeah.
But you have that, and then it's coupled with a horrible defensive breakdown that leaves someone open in the slot, or he goes to make a hit out of position and he just leaves someone wide open. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that's the trade-off you get with him. You might get something flashy and amazing, like some of his overtime goals, or like, we see him streak down the wing sometimes and just bury his head, and then just go in and just roof one. And it's like, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then the next play is like him leaving a guy 30 feet of room in front of the net. And you're like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't outweigh the bad. No. Like, the good doesn't outweigh the bad with him. So, yeah, I hope whatever we decide to do with him, I hope we can find a trade partner that values him more than his value's worth.
Yeah.
I think that's possible just based off of this weird transition period that the league is in where like a lot of people are against analytics and a lot of people are like super analytic heavy. But yeah, like I said, I just hope we find someone that values him more than a lot of other guys and they give up something useful. Montour, I don't know how I feel about trading him. He hasn't been good either, but you look at his time in Anaheim and he was good with the Ducks. Like, that's why we targeted him.
Yeah.
That's why he was worth a first and a prospect. You know, he's a good player. He's got skill. He's not someone that I look at and see a huge problem with. I mean, he makes mistakes, but I think that's amplified just based off of the way this team's been performing because everything's under a microscope now negatively. And he's another one like Ristolainen where he might pass the eye test, but his underlying stats look bad. And I haven't done enough research on him to know if that was the case when he was with the Ducks. But this year with the Sabres, he's been a negative on the ice, supposedly, if you look into analytics like that.
When he came over from Anaheim, I don't know if you remember, he had a really solid Corsi number, and he just looked great. He was putting up, better points. This year, points are down. I don't know if it was maybe the injury has affected him a little bit, getting in the back to swing of things. Mm-hmm. He's looked great with Dahlin overall in his time here. He's playing with Ristolainen right now, which also could drag his, everything down, right. Really. But, you're looking at two guys, obviously, who would I rather trade if we're talking about the same package coming back. I would rather trade Ristolainen for sure. Mm-hmm. Montour has term, or he's an RFA, but, we can give him something. I don't know how much he's going to get. I don't expect a huge raise.
What is he making now?
3.5 or so.
I don't even know what he'd ask for.
I don't either.
I can't imagine it would be anything over like what Risto's making now, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Like, maybe.
And if that's the case, if we were to give Montour Ristolainen's like AAV, I would love it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would keep him because even if he's not good for you moving forward, you can identify that, and that's a very movable contract.
Yeah.
When you look at the guys that have been problems or question marks for the Sabres, they come with a huge cap hit, and we can't move them. That's never brought up with Risto because it is a team-friendly contract for the role that I think a lot of people expect him to play. Mm. And, when you're trading Kyle Okposo for $6 million, no one's going to touch that. But if you trade Ristolainen for $6 million, like that's a much more reasonable expectation for that player. And I think as long as you can get Montour for something more or less the same as Risto, then you just keep him and just see what you can get for Ristolainen.
Yeah. And I could even go to, I'm assuming, arbitration, mm-hmm. which I don't see him getting more than like a little over 4 from.
Yeah.
If they have to, if he's asking for like 6+ or whatever, I don't see that. Like I said.
I don't think so.
But yeah, it could end up coming to a trade that happens around the draft. Mm-hmm. If we trade Risto, obviously we'd rather get someone right now. I think someone that we definitely should bring up is Vincent Trocheck.
For sure.
He, Fleur didn't come out and say like, oh, we're definitely going to trade him, but they said they're listening.
They've gotten a ton of calls on him because they're in such desperate need of defense.
Yes, they need defense. Obviously Ristolainen could come in and help out. We'd get a second line center, and definitely a guy that could ease Dylan Cousins and Middlestat in to whatever they have to do.
Even without those two, I love Vinny Trocheck as a player. I think he would be amazing, regardless of what's around him. I think he would be an amazing pickup. There's so much being said about Jeff Skinner not playing with Eichel, and Marcus Johansson not impressing thus far. I think with a second line center, this has been brought up countless times already, but I would like to echo that and say none of this would be a problem if we had a legit 2C.
Oh yeah.
And he would come in and fill that hole brilliantly, as long as he can stay healthy. And I mean, I'm more than willing to take on an injury risk with someone who has that much upside.
Yeah, because that is one knock against him.
Yep.
Is that his last couple seasons have been injury plagued.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he is 26, I believe. He's got term, second line center. I mean, if you can do it, make the swap. And, you know, even if you had to throw in like a mid-tier prospect or something, I still think it's worth it.
I really don't see a downside to it, honestly, in trying. Unless, you know, I don't know how much I'd give up for him. I would be more than willing to listen to both Montour and Risto if that was the return.
Sure.
Obviously, I would want to try to get as much for as little as possible, but he's, you know, like you said, 26, right in his prime, with term on his contract, good team value. And anyone who's, I think a lot of people, if they hear someone injury prone, their brain would probably go to Zach Bogosian and think, like, we just got out of this, we don't want this again.
Mm-hmm.
It is infinitely easier to find a trade partner for a center than it is a defenseman, even if they're not what they were. You know, Bogosian, say what you will about him, but when he was in Winnipeg, he looked like a guy that was a commodity that someone would want. And we trade for him, and then he goes through all of his injury problems, and then he just looks terrible on the ice, and then you can't move him because no one wants an injury-plagued bad defenseman. They're a dime a dozen. You can pick up defensemen everywhere, especially depth guys. Centers are a million times harder to find than defensemen. They're much, much more rare to see any of them on the market that are still useful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can count on one hand the amount of centers that I see moved. You know, it's not a long list, and defensemen just fly.
Yep.
And
as we've seen.
Yeah, that's
it's probably a good transition into all the great defensemen that have you know,
I wouldn't say great defensemen, but they're defensemen.
The trades that have happened, yeah.
So I have ranted about this. We have discussed this at length with the lack of moves that our GM has made.
And it's no secret. Everyone's mad about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's all just, you know, sitting on his hands, and that's such a bad look, especially with what Murray did toward the end of his tenure. It's the same thing. Well, first of all, before we get into the sort of less familiar crowd of defensemen that have been moved, Marco Scandella got moved. Yep. And in a shocking, I say that with heavy sarcasm, with a shocking twist to this story, we lost another one, boys. We lost another trade.
Chalk it up.
Yep, Montreal traded him to St. Louis for a second and a conditional fourth. So they got back their conditional fourth that they traded us, and then got a second for someone they had for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, Bottrell got swindled here pretty bad.
That's a surprise.
They did have to retain 50%, and the fourth is a conditional. But the conditions aren't too crazy. And all in all, they literally got, not only did they get a few weeks out of the player, Scandella, but they also got a second.
Yep.
And, I mean, they obviously took advantage of how desperate we were. They knew we had a million defensemen, which obviously Bottrell sitting on his hands, like we said, worked against him really, you know, a lot, evidently, in this situation.
Yep.
And he ended up getting screwed, and then Montreal just mocks us by getting a second, which is a quality pick out of this guy they had for 3 weeks.
That's one of the 2 useful picks you can trade for.
Legitimate free second, basically, and use of the player they got. So it's it's pretty rough.
Yep, they stuck it right in and didn't even spit first. They just absolutely took advantage of poor old Jason. I mean, I'd slam my papers angrily in the garbage can too, which was he can't even get angry correctly. It was so awkward to watch.
Well, he probably knows that TSN, like the Canadian broadcast, like always have a view on the GMs, and there was a few. Our boy Ben, everyone loves him. Got like 5 or 6 gifs up of him in his reactions. Some of him just like face palming. Some, obviously him getting angry after losing.
The last one was the best one.
Yeah.
The paper throw out.
He's like,
he like wound up and then just like placed them in the garbage can. And then, that was, it was tough to watch. Just mainly because it was cringy, not because I feel bad for him.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
But getting to the other trades.
Yep.
I guess going in order other than the Scandella one of defensemen moved recently, the last few days. New Jersey traded Andy Green, which surprised me.
How old is Andy Green?
36, I believe.
36-year-old defenseman.
Obviously captain of the team. Lots of, I guess leadership ability.
Well, mainly he's been there a long time.
Yeah, he's been there a while. He's played thousands of games, or not thousands, but over 1,000 games, I believe.
He actually holds the record for thousands of games played.
Infinity amounts of games, I mean. And obviously Lou Morello.
Who?
Wait, did I say it wrong?
What did you say?
Big Lou, sweet Lou.
Lou Lamoriello.
Whatever, that guy. Islanders 80-something-year-old GM. He probably loves Green, so I'm sure he wanted him for a while. Mm-hmm. He gets the opportunity. They trade a 2021 second and Quenneville prospect for him. So I feel like that's a big return.
Yeah, 36-year-old defenseman, and they get a second.
Yeah.
I mean, even
and
if...
a prospect.
And a prospect. Even if the second is next year's...
Yeah, who cares?
It's still a second for a 36-year-old. That's like Gostad for a first all over again. Yeah. Do you know what that first turned into?
Zemgus
Girgensons.
We got fucking punished for that one.
Yep.
We couldn't even get that one nice thing.
Yep. Next trade after Green to the Islanders was... I can't read your handwriting.
No, it's to Winnipeg.
To Winnipeg for Dylan DeMello from Ottawa, and they gave up a third for him.
Yeah. I saw some Ottawa fans were actually kind of mad. They said he should have gotten more than a third.
Well, I mean, when you set the
standard at
Green for a second, that seems a little... I think anyone would be worth a second at that point.
But still, a third not bad.
Yeah, I don't even know who Dylan DeMello is, to be honest with you. I've heard the name. I know nothing about him.
Yeah.
If you didn't, if you were to tell me Dylan DeMello got traded for like a sixth, I'd be like, yeah. Was he an AHLer? I don't even know what that is.
True.
After that, San Jose got rid of Brendan Dillon. They retained half of his salary.
Yep.
And they got a second and a conditional third.
Mm-hmm.
So is he UFA?
Yeah, I mean these guys are all
okay.
Yeah, especially
I didn't know if he had term left.
Yeah.
So another UFA guy that they're gonna have for like 2 months for a second and a conditional third. That's a second, like we said, is a legit return for someone, and then a third, I don't know the conditions on it.
Yeah, I actually didn't see them, but still.
It's still a third. This isn't just like a toss-in pick. Like, thirds still hold weight in the league.
Yeah.
That's, when you see Scandella moved for a second, and you see, like, Brendan Dillon move for a second and another pick, and then you see Andy Green for a second, it's like, what? How is this market? How did the price raise so much since Scandella was moved 3 weeks ago?
It is weird.
Yeah.
It's super weird. I mean, a lot of injuries happened, I guess, but everyone was saying this is going to be a boring deadline because there weren't a ton of like big name guys, but smaller name guys are actually bringing in a decent haul. So it's actually kind of a good situation for the Sabres, and hopefully we take advantage of it. And we're not too late.
I mean, well, we didn't... Also, there was, aside from the Scandella trade, so there have been 5 so far. So it was Green, Dylan DeMello, Brendan Dillon, Marco Scandella, and then yesterday Vegas traded for Alec Martinez from the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
He got 2 seconds.
And they didn't even retain anything, I don't think.
I
believe he does have term.
Alec Martinez is not a big name, like, go out and get him and everyone will be happy defenseman. I mean, he's serviceable, but no one is, like, jumping over their house for Alec Martinez. Like, no one is that happy about it. I mean, it is a nice pickup, but for 2 seconds, you would expect, like, previous deadlines, I know each of them are different and the market is so crazy. 2 seconds would get you, I feel, more of a legitimate asset than Alec Martinez previously.
I actually don't have an issue with this trade. I think Alec Martinez, I mean, say what you will about, playoff experience and whatnot. Obviously 2 cups with the Kings.
That's true.
And he does have term and it's $4 million.
Yeah, I was probably undervaluing him, but just based off of what they gave up in return, like, it just seems like not enough.
Yeah, this whole deadline's been kind of weird with that, like I said, and hopefully we can take advantage of that.
I honestly don't see that happening. I think at this point, around the league, Jason Botterill probably has the reputation that you can take advantage of him. And that's not, that sounds strange because probably people don't think about that a lot, but when you're bad at your job, people will take advantage of it if they're in the same profession. And we've seen it before where he just got swindled less than a month ago. And that resonates around the league with people that they have him on the ropes and they can just keep swinging at him.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not hit on every punch, but you're going to get some through and, like, you're going to be able to take advantage of it. And I think that alone scares me enough to really worry about anything we'll get back for anyone. I don't think it'll be true value for any of the guys. If they were even thinking about moving them in the first place, I don't know what their plans are moving forward with any of these guys. Hopefully they do move some people, but I really don't know what kind of value he'll be able to get back specifically.
Well, I mean, I think his situation is another one where he needs to probably act soon because, like you said, GMs could take advantage of him, and he knows that we have a bunch of assets that we're not going to be able to re-sign all of them. We shouldn't. We shouldn't re-sign, like, any of them except, like, Larsson, Rodriguez, maybe, whatever.
Depending on what he wants.
He has an RFA, but UFA-wise, probably just Larsson.
Yep.
So the longer he waits, if he keeps waiting until the last second, we could be seeing Sherry traded for a 4th or, something stupid. Like, he needs to probably act quickly. I know, speaking of Sherry, I know that Nashville, I believe, and Pittsburgh are looking at him.
Yep.
VC could be a decent, if we're talking about advanced stats, he's actually got a pretty decent look right now.
Well, he's been fine lately.
Yeah.
I think his start was so bad that, like, we still have a sour taste in our mouth from him.
Mm-hmm.
But not to say that he's come around and been what we need him to be, but he's gotten better. And I mean, the goal scoring isn't there, but I'll give him credit for he's at least improved his game marginally from where it was earlier.
Yeah.
It's not good enough still, but he's gotten better. And I'm glad that, if the plan is to try to find a suitor for him, I'm glad that he's turned it around a little. But again, I don't know what any of these guys are worth right now.
I mean, you're hoping you can at least get a third back, maybe. Obviously, it would still be a loss, probably, because if you're trading to a playoff team.
Yeah, my big problem before you continue with trading Sherry or VC would be, we traded a third for VC. I don't see any way that we would get a third in return for him. We traded, a 4th for Sherry.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, a 4th is whatever, but we also took a cap dump.
Yeah.
My worry with Sherry is wherever he goes, he'll be put with better players and he'll actually look good. All of his value came with Pittsburgh in the playoffs. Really.
Well, how much do we care about how a guy looks, especially a rental? I really don't care how well Sherry or VC or whoever
I
perform.
wouldn't care at all about VC, but I would care about Sherry because he's a guy that we've invested time into and we gave him looks. And if we just get rid of him and he goes somewhere else because he's playing with better players and does well, that would just piss me off.
Yeah.
It might be my personal vendetta with Connor Sherry because he's probably my least favorite player on the team. But it would just really, really irk me. Jimmy VC, we traded a third. That would be my problem with it because I don't see them matching value in getting anything back. But it is what it is with him, You swung at a guy that had, 15 to 20 goal potential, and he didn't make it. I think with Sherry, you signed him, and then you expected more out of him, and he just couldn't deliver. So,
well, do you want to just do a rundown of all the UFAs that we're looking at? And
sure.
Okay, so, we already talked about Sherry and VC. I guess Rodriguez is an RFA, but he did ask for a trade. Like I said, I think last episode, could have been revoked because he's playing again.
Yeah.
And he's performing a lot better. He's playing with Skinner. It's still not ideal for us to have him in our top 6, obviously.
Who else is there, realistically?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be honest.
You're not wrong. But, I don't know, do you think that it'll happen, and do you think he would fetch anything decent?
My projection for Evan Rodriguez would probably be like a 4th. I think he would probably be worth a 3rd to a good team because I think he has value. But, just keeping my expectations in line with what I actually think they're going to get, truly, probably a 4th. If they were to move on from him. If they were to keep him, I don't know what he would ask for. That would be my only worry. I don't hate Evan Rodriguez as a player. I think he has value in the right role. He's a guy. That's it. He's depth. Depth is easy to come by. Move him if you can. If not, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the contract talks would look like because arbitration, can you really, with the arbitration settler, really say like, yeah, you should be making more than $2 million? I don't think they can go backwards. I don't think he can get less than 2. I could be wrong on that, but still, his production is not $2 million worth. So
I think if you're going to arbitration again, it's more trouble than it's worth, to be honest. And that it just seems like, if you have to go to arbitration twice, there's obviously such...
Buddy, we went to arbitration with fucking Remy Ellie. Who cares? It's not even trouble.
I'm saying, if you go to arbitration 2 times in a row for the same player, just move him. Because you obviously don't have the same value in mind that he does. So just try to get something for him, because it's not worth it.
Okay.
That's just how I feel about it. I don't know if that has any...
Well, at the same time, we're not really in a situation where we can just kind of let our forwards walk.
We're in a situation where we're going to lose a bunch anyway, and they're all depth guys, and we plucked Curtis Lazar out of nowhere, and he's been a good bottom line player. Stay. They're depth for a reason. They're easy to come by. Guys come and go from teams all the time. If I can't get Evan Rodriguez, I'll spend another $500K on like a veteran player that comes in and has experience and hopefully can right the ship in some way, whether that would be, I don't know anything about the locker room here, or if it's a mess, or if they need leadership or whatever, but, if it's the same money for Rodriguez, or like a guy with playoff experience who like people respect around the league, even if he's older, I'd rather have that.
Yeah, well, they want to come here too. That's the,
yeah, that's
issue.
True. But, it depends on, really, that depends on the player. Some guys throw another however much money at him. Maybe he's from Toronto, he's close to home, the Jeff Skinner thing where He's close to where he grew up, and he's close to his family. So
Brian Gianna.
Yeah, that weighs into it. There's all sorts of different, all kinds of different things that go into that for a player's decision. Just all you can do is look for him and offer him something. But I'd rather, like I said, if it's Rodriguez or another guy for the same amount of money, I'll take the other guy.
Okay, then what about Gergensons?
Gergensons is actually interesting to me because he's having a good year goal scoring wise.
Yeah, he's on pace for like 15, I think, or something like that.
I don't want him anymore.
No.
I think now is the time to try to actually puff up his stats and try to get the wool over someone's eyes and try to sell him for as much as possible. I don't know what he's worth.
Probably a third.
Yeah, hopefully. That would be great.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, going into this year, I'd be like, you can't get a fifth for him. It would be hard to move him for anything that would even be worth it. Mm-hmm. But hopefully a third for him. I don't see them re-signing him. I pray that they don't. I'll go on record and say that even with his production this year, I don't like him as a player. No. So, move on.
Johan Larsson.
I want to re-sign Johan Larsson.
Yes.
The advanced stats gurus agree with me on this. I've seen it all over Twitter.
Yeah.
I'll happily admit to disliking him previously.
Yeah.
And he's come around, and the last couple of years he's been good. And he's a solid role player. What you need out of him, he gives you.
Good defense.
Yeah.
Has some offensive skill.
He's useful. Yeah, he's not a finisher, but he's not a liability in the offensive zone like some of these guys are. He even if he's not scoring, you see him, he's setting guys up. He's got zone time. He's a good forechecker, and he's, just physical. He has everything that I want out of a fourth line guy, and I think he'd be good.
Should have had 2 assists last game. I don't know if you noticed, but on the first Brandon Montour goal, they took away Larsson and Skinner's assist for some reason.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I watched the goal a couple times. I don't really see why they would have taken it away. It must hit a Senator's stick, and then they just assumed it was, they lost possession. Kind of stupid, but either way. Moving on, Scott Wilson. I mean, there's no way we get anything from him, right?
Don't give a shit.
Yeah, okay.
If you can get anything out of Scott Wilson, go for it.
No, he's definitely going to stick around and just fill a hole that is left by Sherry, VC, whatever, one of those guys.
Yep.
And I assume that CJ Smith might be one of those guys as well.
I would assume so. I mean, I don't expect anything from him, but, he's a body.
Taylor, who they just signed in Rochester? Taylor
Layer or something?
Yeah, something like
Liar?
that.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
So he could also be called up to fill a hole.
Yeah. That signing is actually, I think, really showing his hand and we are going to make moves. Yeah. So at least something's coming.
I agree. Any other UFAs here? John Gilmore, I don't expect anything there.
I honestly would hope that we move forward with John Gilmore. Even if it's on a 2-way deal, I don't know if he'd be willing to sign that. I don't know what he's expecting out of his career at this point. But I've liked him when he plays. I like him in Rochester because I think he's a valuable player.
He hasn't been good in Rochester, though.
I don't care. Honestly. When he's here, he's of value to me.
Yeah.
I keep saying role, but role players are half your team.
Mm-hmm.
And when guys understand what they're supposed to do, they don't have to be the best player. They can play that specifically and be good at it. And, we've brought it up before. He's a bottom pairing 7th defenseman that can move the puck, and he's not a disaster in his own zone.
Mm.
So, if we're moving forward with him, I'm fine with it. He's basically, to me, a guy that you can sign and there would be no repercussions if he's terrible.
Okay.
Because you can just throw him in the AHL. He's not going to be worth a lot of money. These are guys that you can sign and take a chance on, and if they don't work out, you don't have to bury their cap or anything.
True. All right, Frolik. Do you think we could get anything for him? We'd have to retain. Surely you'd have to retain half of his salary.
So,
we're not getting a second for retaining half of it. We would
basically get rid of Scandella for a fourth, take even more money on, and then move out the guy we traded
for less than a second and a fourth. That's
for less than a second and a fourth. And then we would have to retain money, so that would go against the cap. And then there's no way we would get a fourth for him. So it would just be another L. So I don't even give a shit. He's not useful here. He has no future here. Just whatever.
I mean, he does have some playoff experience, and I'm sure some people...
that won't come in handy here. So
yeah, so maybe we could get a fourth or something. I mean, I'd be happy with that. I mean, I wouldn't be happy, but I'd be like... I don't
see that.
At least he can go. Yeah, but it's hard to say. And then lastly, we haven't really mentioned it yet, but Zach Bogosian did not report to Rochester as we kind of... I think we brought it up that he might not.
Yep.
A lot of people surprised... Yeah, for his career, it doesn't make too much sense because you probably want to keep playing and show that you can play.
Yeah.
So, and he's also losing money. It's good for us. We have like $7 million in salary cap all of a sudden because he's not reporting.
Yep.
Normally, if we would only be able to bury like a little over $1 million. But now we're literally off the hook for his contract at the moment.
I mean, there was only a couple months left of that anyway, and I didn't ever see them. I mean, it's good to have that, but honestly, looking at it, I didn't expect them to ever use any cap, really. I figured it would be money in, money out for, if you'd moved Risto and actually got a piece back. I didn't expect it to be like an $8 million player. It would just be the same price as Ristolainen would be, just in a different player, Yeah,
it still helps a little bit, obviously, but
yeah, it's nice to have, but like, I'm not really surprised that he didn't show up. I think for his sake, it's terrible not to, because I think he is really overvaluing himself. And if he sat down with his agent and they discussed it and they both thought it was better that he didn't play, I would fire your agent because you are not getting a call.
No.
Playing the way that you did this year and your history with injuries and everything that swirled around you, like making news on wanting a trade and like overvaluing yourself. Like you seem like the one person that you don't want on your team is like he is a possible problem in the locker room by like starting something, by making it public that he doesn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. He's
overpriced, he's injury prone, and he's terrible. You need to get that stigma off of you before you go into looking for another contract, and by not playing, you're not doing that. So, like, his options, however limited they would be, are probably at least cut in half by him not playing.
I mean, if it's really an attitude thing with him... Like, he's actually going down there and going, like, I'm not playing the AHL. Like, buddy, you're worse than half the D-men down there.
You're worse than all of them. Let's be honest, man. Look at their D-core. They're
Nathan
good.
Patience.
Yeah.
Either way, yeah, it's not something you want to... I mean, even if that's not the case, that's what it looks like right now. And it's a bad look, like you said. So, super by him. I mean, he is waiver exempt now, so... But I don't even see getting a seventh for him. It's not even worth your time. If he's suspended,
no one took him for free. Why would they trade for him?
That does happen though. Like just so he is waiver exempt. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, probably not worth even talking about.
Nope.
So I guess we can move on to what we have set up here. Probably to possibly end the podcast because we're kind of deep in. But
yep. So this is if you're watching, you can't read it anyway. This is a list on our handy dandy whiteboard. Does the whiteboard have a name?
No.
Should we name it? He's with us every episode.
What do you think?
Walt.
I was thinking Frank, but
I like Frank. That's
okay.
Good.
All right.
I mean, Walt sounds better because he's Walt the whiteboard. But
Frank fine, Walt.
No, we picked
What about
Frank.
his middle name, Frank?
What if Walt was very frank with us?
I want him to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Wank. That's his name. So what we have here is every trade of Jason's tenure. Starting.
Well, I think there's been a few like little mini ones, right? Like
this is everything that is actually like
relevant,
has made an impact to the NHL team. So like Baptiste and Bailey moving it didn't make a dent. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna start by his first trade, and then work our way to the most recent trade, and we're gonna go on a +5 -5 scale. So. A 0 means it was basically no impact.
Yeah, it was like a wash.
A -5 would be the worst possible, and then a +5 would be like the best possible. So you're not going to see many of those. So first off, first year, Nathan Boyu in for a third going the other way to Montreal. So what would you give this?
I mean, I think it was a good attempt. I mean, this is... To make it clear, we're rating how we feel like the trade was at the time and its result, right?
We're mixing like what it was perceived to be and then how it turned out.
So to be fair, this looked like a smart attempt. Our defense was pretty awful when he came in.
Yep.
I thought this was smart. Obviously did not work out very well. I'll give it a 1.
A 1? Okay. Yeah. I'm going to give it a 0 just because it was a complete wash for me. I like the idea. If it was a fourth, I'd probably give it a 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Just because, thirds aren't really anything, but they're still high enough where, like, I would like to see some return for 1.
Yeah.
Next one hits close to home for Stevie. Pominville and Scandella and a fourth.
Yeah.
For Ennis, Foligno, and a third.
Yeah. Ennis was a favorite of mine growing up. Still, love to see him succeed, doing solid on the Senators. 2 points again for him against the Sabres. But going back to the trade, again, we needed the defense. And Pominville bringing him back, that was just like really savvy of Botterill to bring back a fan favorite like him.
But you also got rid of a fan favorite in Foligno.
Yeah, everyone loved Foligno. A lot of people
mainly because of his father, just because of the ties that Mike had. But
people did love Ennis. I mean, it was kind of a case of how soon they forget.
Yep.
Because Ennis had his concussion issues, came back, wasn't as good, kind of got thrown down in the lineup, unfair to him.
Yep.
But it's hard to judge because right now Ennis is, Pominville's out of the league. Scandella, we traded for a fourth, and right now Ennis looks like he'd probably get more than a fourth. Foligno, he's been pretty solid over in Minnesota, and we also got a lower pick. But I'm still gonna give it a 1.
A 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to see your rating though.
I'm gonna give this a -1.
Okay.
Just because a third going out for a fourth, that's less value. Pominville and Ennis was kind of a wash for me, and I think Foligno is more useful than Scandella.
Okay.
So I understand where he's coming from because we were trying to shore up the defense because it was terrible when he came in. But it's a wash, and Ennis, Foligno in a third is a better haul than Pominville, Scandella in a fourth. If Pominville had the same value as he did last year for the team, this would definitely be a win. But it wasn't long-lasting enough for me.
Right.
I don't think he made an impact long enough that it would really be anything.
Okay. So, next trade, Scott Wilson for a fifth.
Yeah, this one probably didn't really need to be on the list. It's kind of a useless one.
Well, I'm giving it a -1 because, even when it happened, I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah.
Really? And then, I mean, obviously the result, he just got buried in the AHL basically for a while. He came up, wasn't super effective. I mean, he was decent, but and now he's back in the AHL, so whatever. I'm surprised you gave it a 0, though. I'm not going to lie. It's just so irrelevant, I guess. Here.
Yeah, I just don't see any downside. A fifth is never going to make an impact.
Yeah, I know.
And Wilson, I mean, he wasn't either, but at least he was someone that could help you now. And I would have a fringe NHL guy for a fifth every day of the week. So I didn't see it making an impact, but I didn't see it making a negative impact, so that's a wash for me.
But I feel like a player like him is so easy to get. I'll just end it on that you don't even need to use draft
but
picks
fifths are so easy to get too.
I guess.
I mean, you could trade an AHLer for a fifth, I guess the only thing you're giving up at that point would be the age of the player that you're getting.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have an older guy who's a fringe NHLer than a young guy who really realistically has little to no chance of making it.
Okay.
After that, the next one was probably the first major trade, which was the Kane trade. Obviously, he wasn't re-signing here.
Yeah.
We got Danny O'Regan back, a second, which turned into a first.
Yeah.
Because he re-signed with the Sharks, and a fourth. This is interesting because if you just look at this, it's not a great trade, but just knowing what the situation was where we knew he wasn't going to stay, this was just him getting something for him.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the first condition. O'Regan is nothing to me. A fourth is nothing to me. But I'm going to give this a +1.
That's it? I'm going to give it a 3 because...
A 3?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I think I might do a +2.
Yeah. Okay, because you also have to look at it, and it was kind of stupid to me, but there was a lot surrounding Kane, because if you don't remember, he had some issues, like, whatever, outside of the rink.
Yep.
At that time. And, I mean, obviously he was having a good year for us, but... I don't know. I feel like getting a first and a fourth for that. Obviously, looking at how Green got a second and a prospect makes it look kind of okay, especially because they had the condition. But we ended up getting a first for it, so not too bad.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm probably biased because of my feelings toward the GM right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see a +3, a +2. It wasn't a home run. It wasn't bad by any means. Just the situation was, this needed to happen, and I'm glad that he got something for it, because as of right now, I feel like if this was this year, he would wait too long and he would just get murdered again. After that, I think this was the off season. After that, so it was the trade with Pittsburgh for Sherry and Hunwick for a fourth.
Yeah.
Sherry was coming off of, he looked like a useful player. He had a good playoff. Hunwick was a cap dump and just a body on defense. We're still at this point trying to shore up the D-core. I think at this point it was kind of looked at as we had a locker room issue and we needed leadership. I think that went into it as well. I'll give this a +1. We gave up a fourth for those guys. I don't like the cap dump, but I like the prospect of trading for a guy that has shown something, and for, a fourth is nothing to me.
I'm going to give it a +1 too. Obviously, the result didn't turn out super well, but I feel like it was a low risk, high reward type thing. Nothing much more to say on that. So let's move to the elephant in the room, the St. Louis trade that has probably put us back another couple seasons. Yep. We're still hurting from it. Trading Ryan O'Reilly for Berglund, Sobotka, Thompson, a first and a second. Obviously, we've talked about this a ton, so I'll just go through quick. Berglund ended up leaving. He's not even on the team anymore.
He was a cap dump. Sobotka was a cap dump.
And it was the worst forward in the NHL, basically. And he's out for the season now, so he's gone, basically.
Yep.
Tage Thompson, I think he still has potential and can somewhat help this trade not look super, super, super terrible. Maybe just super, super terrible.
We're gonna take one of the adjectives off.
The first ended up being a 31st overall pick, so it was the worst case scenario. And the second, I believe, is either this year or next year. So, we've talked about it at length. And me and Brian talked before this. We are making an exception here. We are going to give this trade a -10.
This is we've discussed it before. The worst trade in NHL history that I can think of.
I don't know if we can go. I'd have to look at every single trade, but it's terrible. Yeah, it's super
Just
terrible.
in recent memory, you give the team cap relief, you get 1 prospect and 2 picks for I don't even know what you can call O'Reilly at this point, aside from, like, he's amazing. He's, one of, if not the best defensive center in the league right now.
Yep, top 5 for sure, I would say.
Top 3. Top 2.
Yeah.
I can't think of more than one player that I would think is better defensively than him, and that's Bergeron.
Yeah, he's up there with, like, Bergeron, Kopitar. Cirelli's getting in there in the talks, but, yeah, he's up there for sure. One of the best.
And, he was a huge part of their cup run. I can't think of another trade where you got nothing in return for a guy that won the cup the next year.
Yeah, Thompson's the only hope. Thompson and Johnson are the hopes here, and then maybe the second could turn. But it's going to be a late second, surely.
Yep.
But yeah, we've talked at length of that. It's pretty bad. So I guess we should just move on to the Skinner trade, which kind of turns it around.
Yeah, well, up until this year.
I'm still going to give this a +5, and
That's fair.
because like we talked about, and I don't want to repeat ourselves too much, but we talked about, I think Skinner is not the issue this season. It's not all his fault. He's still playing with trash for the most part.
Yep.
In the trade, we traded Pooh, who he's just a ghost now.
Yep.
And a second, third, and a sixth for a sure thing first line. Maybe argue. I mean, he's a solid 30-40 goal scorer. So you do that any day of the week, right?
Absolutely. The only reason I'm not giving it a +5 is because when you took Skinner on, you knew the risk of only having him for 1 season. And then, obviously, the contract that was given out, we were backed into a corner. We needed to re-sign him, basically. You're not going to survive a 40-goal scorer walking away. And just the way that has transpired has knocked it down for me. If he was still, even a 25 to 30 goal guy right now, and he was just having a normal season and we weren't paying him, even if you knocked $1 million off of his salary, that'd be a +5 for me all day.
Okay.
But I just don't like the way it transpired, and the only reason I'm not giving it a 5, like I said, is that you knew the cap ramifications that were coming up, and you willingly took that on and just butchered it. Really.
Okay.
The next one, not really an important one, but I want to touch on this specifically. A 7th for Taylor Fedun.
It was actually even a conditional 7th.
A conditional 7th for Taylor Fedun, who is actually good.
Yeah.
He's actually useful.
I mean, he was only playing like 12 minutes a night, basically, with us, and he was getting scratched every other game. But it was another one of those, like, free Fedun type trades, like free Asplund, or free Antipin, free Pilot, free Fedun, because he, even though, maybe if you played him a ton more, he wouldn't have been as effective.
Yeah,
but even in his role, he was solid.
He looked better than most of the guys playing, because most of the guys in front of him were dog shit.
Yeah.
And he was still, I don't know how old he is now, but he was still relatively young when this happened.
Yeah, and we gave him away basically for nothing.
Literally nothing.
It could have been 0. I mean, we ended up getting a 7th, but it could have been literally nothing. So I'll give it a -3 as well. I
gave it a -3 just because at that time we still were sorely lacking defense, and he was one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And we gave him away.
Other guys should have been gone before him.
For sure.
Yeah.
It was literally for nothing.
Yeah.
And it was seemingly for no reason, because it's not like we had a ton of depth like we do now, and it's not like we were really well put together on the back end. Like, it didn't make any sense. We got nothing back, and he's turned his career into, like, he has value.
Yep.
And, like, that just looks terrible. The next one after that was Montour for Gooley and a first that we got from the Sharks for Kane. I'm interested to know what you think about this because of Montour's play lately.
Yeah, it's the rating has probably fallen a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he had control We traded a question mark for a guy that I mean, Montour definitely could play in the NHL. Obviously, the question is, where is his ceiling? And we did trade a first as well, a lower first. But, yeah, I still like it. I'll give it I'll give it a +4 because I think it was, the right move at the time. It's still up in the air, but I think it's still smart to trade away question marks for a sure thing defenseman. And especially if Ristolainen is moved, he's going to be that much more important, and we'll need him.
I gave it a +3. The play right now doesn't really come into effect that much in the way I'm thinking of this. The only thing I don't like about it was the price for the type of player that he is, I think, was a little steep. I think ideally, if we didn't make this trade and Gulli remained on the path that he was on, I think he could have turned into more or less the same player as Montour is, which is, not a huge negative. He makes a positive impact sometimes. I mean, Gulli now looks like probably not going to turn into anything.
Yeah, but he did fall off a bit.
At the time, he was looked at, maybe it was because we had such little depth at that position at that time, but he looked like a guy that was going to be able to come up and make an impact for us. And then a first is, that's the highest possible draft pick you can give up. Basically, it would be higher, but if it was Gulli alone or a first alone, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Even if it was a second. But just because of the first that's in there and the trajectory that Gulli is on and the kind of player that both him and Montour are, I think that kind of knocks it down a little just because, like I said, Gulli could have turned into Montour and a first is useful. But I do like Montour as a player, so I still give it a +3.
Mm-hmm.
After that, this would be a great trade. This was the Miller trade with Vegas for St. Louis's second that we got in the O'Reilly massacre.
Uh-huh.
What would you give this one?
I like this trade still. I mean, it looked bad, especially when we were scratching Miller.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, he's playing a lot more. He's looked good. If we trade Risto, he's going to be very important for us, or Montour. So
what if we trade him?
Depends what we get, I guess.
There's no way we're getting a second back.
Yeah, it would be stupid to trade him right now. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it might have been a fifth in the trade, too. But either way, I'll still give it, I think it's +3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I give this a +2. If he played regularly, I would give this a +4. The fact that they basically just sat him for no reason for a lot of the year, and this created even more of a logjam that was never fixed. It still isn't fixed, to be honest. That knocks it down a couple points. A second, it's not even our second. So that makes it a little better.
Yeah.
It was a very, looking at this now, a second for St. Louis is like
basically a third.
Basically a round later than it would be, especially in the second where, the beginning of the second round still has first round talent. Just guys roll over and, things happen and some guys fall. When you get into the late second round, like it's just a shit show or just a shit shoe, basically. Like you don't know what you're going to get. I like the trade straight up, but looking at how they used him since then, and he's looked fine. He hasn't looked bad. He's looked good in certain aspects. I just don't know why they weren't using him. And if they used him all year and he looked this way, I would give it a +4, like I said.
Yeah,
but
good
just lack of use and just weird usage knocked that down to a +2 because it seemed like he had a plan and then abandoned the plan.
Yep.
And I don't like that look. After that, it was with the Rangers, VC for a third. This is...
I didn't like it.
No.
It didn't make sense, especially, we had guys like Lazar and Thompson who got sent down after camp, even though they had good camps, because of VC coming in, basically.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense to me. I'm giving it a -2. I'm actually harder on it than you are. I think thirds are still pretty decently relevant. I know 10% or whatever everyone says, but it's not even that. It's more the merit that we kind of clogged our forward roster for no reason, and he hasn't been that great for us. So
I gave it a -1. Again, I like the idea of getting NHL talent for someone who thirds are. What's the hit rate on a third?
10%.
10%. So you're getting a 100% NHL caliber player for a younger 10% NHL player.
Mm-hmm.
He's been not good at all. He was dog shit in the beginning of the year. He's gotten more useful, but he's still not what we need him to be.
Mm-hmm.
It evens out, and he's been so bad that this looks poorly on Bottrell's ability to look at players and value them.
Yeah.
More so than anything. I'm basing my -1 more so on his lack of the ability to look at a player and see what kind of skill they have and how they'll fit in.
Yeah.
You know what I just realized? We've missed the Yoki Haru trade in here.
Okay.
All right, well, we're going to add this to the bottom because this is a big one.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. I know you were all screaming at your YouTube. And for anyone listening, I didn't actually forget. This is all just a joke. I'm not writing it right now. Chicago. Okay, so we'll go with the Yoki Haru Nylander trade next. That was actually in order after VC, right? That was the last one before the season started. So
I'll give this one a 4.
Okay.
Obviously, I think the only thing that knocks this off a point is that we traded a forward prospect, which we don't have a ton of, but he was looking down, and Yoki Haru has been great for us, and that's all I have to really say about it.
I will echo that, and the only thing I'll add would be Yoki Haru has looked amazing. Nylander is not.
Mm-hmm.
This was a great trade for us. The only thing, like you said, is we didn't have forwards and we had too many defensemen, and then we lost another forward and added another defenseman. So all of the other trades make this one look worse, even though this is by far his best trade he's made.
Yep.
I mean, that's without question, really. Anyone who's looking at the other ones and thinks any of them are better, I don't see how there's an argument for that. Yoki Haru has been great. Nylander hasn't. That's, like I said.
And then I guess the last two we already touched on, so we don't have to really spend too much time on it. But the 4th round pick from Montreal to get Scandella.
Yeah.
Wow.
That down. So I originally wrote -4. I'm going to knock that down to a -3.
Okay.
I'm only knocking that down because this would be a -5, but the injuries that happen around the league make me think that there were buyers in the market that weren't previously.
Yeah.
What would you give this?
I'll give Scandella. I'll give that trade a -1.
Okay. Even
Is that taking? Well, I'll take my anger into the second side and give that a -4 as well.
Okay. Well, let me remind you that when I sent the breaking news that Scandella was traded for a second and a conditional 4th to you on Twitter, you responded by saying, "I've lost
that's
GM."
This side. That's this side. Yeah, that's why I gave it a -4.
But you said
I wanted a 3rd for Scandella, and obviously the injury issue and whatever made it a 2nd, which is sad.
Right.
But I thought a 3rd was fair. A 2nd makes me angry because we missed out on it.
Yeah.
But I stand by this. And
well, I'm only saying that because I thought it was funny that your breaking point was only a -1 on your scale.
No, my breaking point was the -4.
No. You said when you found out that we lost out on a second for Scandella and we only got a fourth. This was not brought into the equation.
You're right.
This was brought into the equation.
Right.
And we're like,
whatever. That whole spiel becomes a -5. Whatever. So yeah, you can have your closing thoughts while I add up the scores here.
All right. So closing thoughts. Being bad at math and just quickly looking at this board. For the most part, it's mostly just washes, with a couple negatives and a couple positives dabbled in. And then it's just brought down by the worst imaginable trade. So you have a 1 so far. Nice. Okay, so total, with all the plus minuses, a 0 meaning he's the most neutral, bland GM. I can't believe you got a 1 with a -10.
Yeah, it
that's actually shocking to me.
Yeah.
Are you sure you added that right?
Yeah.
Wow, you're such a positive person. Man, you must be a joy to live with. Well, let's see here. I'm not adding, just so you know. I was just looking.
Well, you're supposed to stall while I do it, and then
I forgot what I was doing, so I just stared off into space. Yeah, basically, I'm still waiting on you. You're taking a while for being a mathematician. I would assume I'm probably more negative than you are. I would hope I'm more negative than you are.
You are -6.
-6? Really? Where are the huge discrepancies? Well, there's 2. I was actually more... Wow, all right. I was actually more positive about one of the trades than you were. That's interesting.
I know, yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Well, we learn something new every day. Apparently, I'm more positive than you are. Yeah, so basically, rounding this out, I had a -6 and you had a +1.
Yeah.
And that really, that's surprising that I wasn't lower because of the -10.
Mm-hmm.
So that means he was actually a +4 with the rest of his trades, which is surprising to me. So I guess good job on that front. Too bad you have the one trade that will be your undoing until the day you die. Do you ever see, if he's the GM for the next 10 years and we turn it around?
Jesus, oh yeah, he'd obviously be doing very good if that was the case.
So yeah, let's say they give him one more year and they make the playoffs next year and they turn it around. Mm-hmm. What would it take for this fan base to get over the O'Reilly? Would it be
making the playoffs? I think.
But let me say, we would make the playoffs. Something would have to happen where we would replace him, right? There's no way we would make the playoffs with the roster that we have now. It's not possible, realistically.
Yeah.
To even making the playoffs wouldn't be enough for me because I want to have a shot at, I want to be a legit contender at some point in my fucking lifetime.
Well, I just look at the Bills. They just barely made the playoffs that one year, right?
Well, that was McDermott's first year.
Yeah.
So, that was just a shock.
Yeah.
That was like the 06-07 Sabres because they were not supposed to be good and they just miraculously made it in.
Yeah, but before that, a huge playoff drought, obviously, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of how Buffalo fans are. They kind of jumped to extremes. They made the playoffs even though, it wasn't the greatest team, and all of a sudden people were pumped again. So it could be the same case here. Obviously, that trade is pretty scarring. It's somewhat correctable. I mean, you can kind of put a Band-Aid on it. You throw Trocheck in there. Cousins turns out. Mm-hmm. Middlestat figures it out. Thompson looks good. couple decent free agent signings.
There is so much that you need to do to rectify this.
Surely some of those things will happen.
Well, hopefully.
But it could, and I mean, you never know. Year to year, things change. I don't think if, we go a couple rounds, people are going to really, be still super upset, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. You know what's going to happen?
What?
We're going to make the playoffs, and then we're going to make it to the Cup against St. Louis. And he's just going to go off on us. And he's going to have 20 points in 4 games.
34-year-old Ryan O'Reilly will just dominate Eichel in the face-off circle. And that'll be the difference.
He'll just run into Dahlin and knock his career off course. Yeah. Eichel will demand a trade after because of the shellacking that they got.
Yeah.
And then it'll all fall apart, and O'Reilly will really stick it to us twice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everything that you just said to rectify one move is why we need to move on from Jason Botterill, because, anyone who's listened to this before knows my stance on him and your stance on him. You definitely take a more apologetic stance to him. You seem to think that this job is actually as hard as he makes it seem. And I definitely don't think that it is. But on that note, do you have any closing ideas of what you would like to see the Sabres do on Monday?
On or before Monday, I think it's pretty simple. We need a top 6 forward with term, if possible.
Do you see anything specific happening, or do you have any targets that you would love to get? Realistically.
I mean, Trocheck would be great.
Yep. He's at the top of my list.
I mean, there's not really a ton of forwards dangling out there. I mean, I know Winnipeg just filled a hole. They were one of the teams that really needed something. Seth Jones is out for a while, so maybe Columbus has someone they have a decent amount of forwards, more depth there than we do for sure. So, that could be happening. I think Josh Anderson was one of the guys I was looking for to say. So, yeah, there's a few guys out there. But, yeah, just do something hopefully there. Get rid of Ristolainen. And if not, he better be traded around the draft. That's just my stance on it. Mm-hmm. Get what you can for VC Sherry. I know you can't trade every single pending UFA. But, the guys that you can get the most value for, do it. And, just don't mess up, because this is probably, if he does nothing like Tim Murray did in his last trade deadline,
I would hope he'd be gone.
He better be gone, yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a trade proposal, and I'm interested to see what you would think about it, because in my brain it keeps jumping from one side to the other.
Okay.
So you have to trade 2 of these 3 to get this player in return.
Okay.
Would you trade Middlestat and Samuelson, or those 2 and a first for Dylan Larkin?
Wait. So the options are trade both of them or trade both of them in a first for Larkin?
No. Would you rather trade? So it would be either 2 of these 3. So you have to pick 2 out of this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
2 of the 3 out of this bunch. Probably Samuelson.
Samuelson is 100%, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So would you
who's
trade
first? Our first?
Yes.
I would trade Middlestat, probably.
No, I don't mean picking one. Would you take this group, 2 out of the 3, whichever 2 out of the 3 they would want? So you give them these 3 options and pick 2
for Dylan Larkin?
For Dylan Larkin. Would you do it?
Probably, yeah.
Would you?
I think so.
See, this is...
But they're not going to want Samuelson.
Why wouldn't they? He's young. Or Ryan Johnson. All right, make it Ryan Johnson.
Well, no, I don't want it. No, okay. Are you saying they would take 2 of those 3 and I can't choose them?
They would choose.
Yeah, okay. Well, they would never take Samuelson over Middlestat is what I'm saying. And they would take the first over Samuelson too. So you're saying a first and Middlestat for Larkin.
All right, so instead of giving them the 3. So basically, it would have to be I don't know how to word this. You don't come to them and say, pick 2. If that was if it was possible that they would want that group of 3, 2 out of them. You don't know which ones they are. So any of
fuck is this?
I don't know how to word this. Would you trade Dylan Larkin for either Middlestat,
Yeah, I want Larkin.
Samuelson, and a first?
Yes,
any
I
of
would.
those two?
Yeah.
Would you?
Larkin, yes, I would.
Okay. Do you think they would be willing to do it? If you came to Detroit and said, we'll give you a first and Middlestat for Dylan Larkin.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to word it. Would they? I don't know. I don't think so.
You really don't think so?
Because I'm thinking we're going to pick around 8 or 9 again.
Mm-hmm.
Middlestat isn't a for sure thing.
Right.
Larkin is a for sure thing.
But how long, realistically, do you think Detroit's window is until they're competitive?
I mean, he's still young.
I know, but he's, how many years does he have left?
I'm not sure.
On his deal. At least like 4 or 5. I think he's Eichel's age, right?
I believe so.
So if they take 3 years to be competitive, he's basically starting to go into the back end of his career. That's why I keep getting so confused about it. I'm not saying he would be on the decline. I'm saying he would be, if he started when he was 18 and he's going to play until he's 35, if he's 26 or 27, he's right in the middle. He's headed toward the back end of his career. This is why I
would do it.
Would you do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was just a stupid random thing that I've been thinking about, and I wanted to get your expert opinion on it because I trust your.
It is an expert opinion, and it's a fair question, and I think it would, it's one of the arguments about a for sure thing. Like we talked about with Gooley, I think that's a huge top, and that's a first line forward for sure. Or, I mean, obviously, I don't know, maybe it would be easier to say yes to if it's a lottery protected first. That's another question or another answer I'm sure we'd get. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we should definitely do if that came up.
All right. Well, then I'll lead that into my final point, which would be who I would want to go after, which would be, realistically, I think Larkin would be gettable just because of Detroit's situation. And if the price was right, I think he would be someone that would, obviously be of tremendous help to us. And I think they could benefit just based off of the path that they're going down in having someone younger and more assets to put toward that. Trocheck would be another one. I haven't really looked around the league. I don't know who needs defensive help, to be honest. If they traded Risto to the Lightning, like has been talked about forever, who would you think they would go after? Like Tyler Johnson or something?
I don't think they're going to trade anyone on their current roster right now. I think they would have to, throw in a prospect or something. I don't know.
What is their cap looking like?
I don't think it's really something
I think it would have to be money in, money out.
I don't think it would happen.
I don't think so either. I'm just saying, they were at our game, and, this has been talked about forever.
Yeah, maybe Tyler Johnson, if he's, $5-6 million.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be slotted in as that second-line center for us.
Any other players you'd look at? Or you've
Josh Anderson, like I said.
Yep.
Ehlers was someone I wanted, but that looks like it's off the market.
Would you take Alex Tuch or Jonathan Marchessault? Between
those two?
Yep.
Yeah, Tuch.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would take both, so.
For sure. I would much rather have Tuch. We discussed this off air. I think Marchessault is a good goal scorer, but he doesn't fit the player that, Tuch is he's less of a sure thing, but for this team, I think he'd be more of a sure thing. As weird as that sounds, because I can't have our GM trade for a guy who might not be impactful at all. You know what I mean? And he's not really a streaky goal scorer, but I don't think he's put up numbers consistently enough that he would be a for sure thing to take on his age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd rather have the younger player and just kind of, even if I don't know exactly what I'm getting in him, I think just his age alone would make him more impactful to this team moving forward, because I think his floor is much higher than Marchessault's floor, which would just be yet another like Kyle Okposo, who is supposed to be putting the puck in the net.
I don't agree with that at all. I think you undervalue him a lot.
I'm not saying that's what he would be. I'm just saying I think Marchessault's floor as a player for this specific team where you need younger guys moving forward, if you're going to go after an older forward, they need to be proven and need to know for sure.
If you put him with Eichel, he's putting up 90
They're
points.
not going to put him with Eichel, though. They don't put Jeff Skinner with Jack Eichel. That line, if they keep Reinhart, is the line moving forward. So you're getting Jonathan Marchessault. Where are you putting him?
For second line, sure.
With who? That's Skinner. What I'm saying.
Skinner.
And who else? No, they don't have a center.
I don't think it matters that much.
I think it does.
I think it would help out a lot.
I think it would help out too, but I don't know if it would make the impact that Alex Tuch would, because realistically, I don't expect this team to be competitive enough that a 30-year-old would make a difference like he is right now for his team. In the next couple years, I don't think he's going to be able to make the same impact for this team.
Well, yeah, I think in the long run, Tuch is better, but I think you're not giving Marchessault enough credit.
I guess
for what he would do to this team.
I think if he went to a team that was...
Did a fucking monster truck just pass by?
Or a really big bee. I don't know. If it was a team that was contending now, Marchessault all day.
Okay.
But I don't see the window of the Sabres actually using him to his full potential being in the prime of his career. I think by the time we become competitive, he would start the decline.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. And I probably worded that incorrectly up until then. But yeah, like you said, I'm fine with either one. I would rather have Tuch. Vegas just traded for Alec Martinez, so I don't know if they're still looking for help or not.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think it's going to happen.
Winnipeg still needs a D-man. And I hope just whatever happens with if we move a defenseman, it needs to be for someone who's young and can help our offense.
Yeah.
And that, that's obvious, but I figured it would need to be said just to put it out there. Hopefully put it out in the world and, bring it to fruition.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's thought of us trading a D-man for a forward yet, so hopefully...
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I know. I just thought of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're smart.
Thank you.
You should do a podcast.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. We've been babbling too long, like we always do. Well, I always do anyway. You're usually more direct, and I'm usually just a looping path. And then I lose my train of thought because I have Asperger's. All right. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a like, share it like
for the
always.
trade deadline special.
Trade deadline
special. I think it went on an hour and a half, so.
All right. Well, you have an
extended. You're welcome.
Extra 27 minutes more than I figured it would go.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, share, leave a like, comment if you loved it, comment if you hated it. Be mean to us. We're used to it. We can take it.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully the Sabres do something, and hopefully... we
have something nice to talk about.
Hopefully the next episode will have kind of an illuminating light on us and really send us in a positive direction going forward with... I need something to grab onto, because right now I'm just sinking, and I have this horrible feeling that we're going to remain in this position moving forward, and I can't do it.
And we might.
And we may. More likely than not, we'll probably be in the same position next week, just with less forwards. But yeah, here's hoping that we make a good move. Again, thanks for listening. Fuck Mr. Peanut.
Yep.
Again, and all of his marketing team. And
this podcast is not sponsored by Mr. Peanut and
Nope.
Planters Peanuts. So
no, it's actually sponsored by their rival snack company, Paulie's Paint Chips.
Oh, yeah.
Now made with 100% real lead.
We almost forgot the ad read, dude.
Yeah. Well, we're actually sponsored now. We should have put this in the beginning. But Paulie's Paint Chips, now made with 100% real lead paint.
Yep.
Lower class toddlers love them. You'll love them too.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time. Toodles.